talking about. I promise everything will be okay. If you're listening here on the airwaves, it's that WBOK 12:30 a.m.
From the campus of Xavier University,
Yeah.
WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Chadwick Boseman has a new star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The late Black Panther actor was honored Thursday with director Ryan Coogler calling him our most incredible jewel.
He reflected light, he refracted it, and when he did, he showed the greatness of our people.
Boseman died in 2020 at age 43 from colon cancer. Congress may soon make it harder to censure lawmakers. A bipartisan plan backed by Speaker Mike Johnson and leader Hakeem Jeffries would raise the threshold from a simple majority to 60%. It follows 3 censure votes in 1 week. And Paramount is cutting nearly 200 Hollywood jobs after its $8 billion merger with Skydance. The company plans to eliminate about 2,000 positions, around 15% of its workforce, to save $3 billion over the next 2 years. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily express the views or opinions of Equity Media, its management, staff, or affiliates of WBOK.
Now, it's the Monitor's Mic with your host, Stella Cement.
Welcome to the Monitor's Mic, where we talk oversight, policing, and you. I'm Stella Cement, your host and the Independent Police Monitor for the City of New Orleans. And with me is Chriselle Williams, our Deputy Police Monitor. This show is your go-to source for discussing policing, law enforcement oversight, and how it all impacts you. From the Office of the Independent Police Monitor, we offer an independent perspective on city government. The Office of the Independent Police Monitor serves as a crucial civilian oversight body for the New Orleans Police Department, the NOPD. We ensure transparency and accountability within the police department by making sure that NOPD follows their policies and is compliant with all local, state, and federal laws. We, your hosts, are not police officers, but we are experienced attorneys from the criminal legal field, dedicated to transparency and accountability. What do we do day to day? We at the Office of the Independent Police Monitor take complaints of officer misconduct from the public and from police officers. We review misconduct investigations conducted by the NOPD's Internal Affairs, which is called the Public Integrity Bureau. We're on call 24 hours a day, every day of the year for officer-involved shootings and critical incidents. And we will go to the scene and monitor the force investigation from start to finish. We're advisory members of the Use of Force Review Board, the Serious Misconduct Review Board, and we attend the disciplinary hearings. We run the Community Police Mediation Program and the Post-Mediation Program. We engage the community to ensure your voice, opinions, and concerns are heard. This summer, the OIPM launched the 24-hour hotline for complaints of officer misconduct or accounts of positive policing. This hotline is operational every day of the year. The hotline is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. You have the option to file anonymously through the platform, and you will be given a unique tracking number. You can reach this hotline by calling or texting 1-877-225-OIPM. Again, that's 1-877-225-OIPM, which is 6476. So remember, report it or reward it, 24 hours a day. Our show today, during our show today, we encourage you to call in with your questions, comments, concerns. You can reach us on air here at WBOK at 504-582-9422. While we may not be able to address individual cases, we are committed to following up with you. So with that, let's learn more about today's guest, Chriselle.
Today we are joined by Detective Rob Barrier.
Detective Barrier was born and raised in Metairie, Louisiana. He comes from a lineage of law enforcement and is the third generation in his family to serve. Detective Barrier joined the New Orleans Police Department in October 2004, beginning his career on patrol in the 7th District. Over the years, he advanced through investigations and task force work in the 6th District, eventually joining the Homicide Unit in December 2012. In total, Detective Barrier has served more than 21 years with the department. He spent roughly 13 years with working homicides and in recent years has taken on cold case investigations. Detective Barrier is married and a proud father of 3. He is a creature of habit, rising between 3 and 4 a.m. to get in a few miles of running before heading to the office. He seriously loves breakfast, books, music, and when it comes to rap, his GOAT is none other than Andre 3000. Detective Barrier says that one of the most rewarding parts of his job is helping bring closure to the families who've lost their loved one. In a unit where every case is tough, he's proud to lead investigators who work with dedication, toughness, and intelligence. So thank you so much for joining us today, Detective.
You're welcome.
So I grew up watching this show called, Cold Case. I don't know how many people watched it, but I loved it. So for people that may not exactly know, what is the Cold Case Unit? What do you all do?
Right. So within the NOPD, our cold case unit typically looks into cases that are 2 years and older unsolved, meaning there was not an arrest made, not a warrant issued for a perpetrator. These are open and unsolved cases. We look at these daily. And as you can imagine, in a city such as New Orleans, where we've had some violent years in the past, unfortunately, in the 90s, we had some years where we had over 400 homicides in a year. There are hundreds of cold cases in the city that are currently unsolved. And again, we get calls every day to our office from family members, children of victims, to look into these cases. We also independently do reviews of cases, looking for any, any evidence that may have existed back then that wasn't ever tested for DNA or any possible witnesses that weren't found. And again, we go through year by year, case by case. Also, with the phone calls that come in, so we kind of have a 2-tiered approach to it. We field the phone calls from families, and we also independently look into these unsolved cases from 2 years and older, pretty much.
That's great. What phone number should families be calling? Because I hear about families calling in.
Yeah, they can call the homicide office. It's 504-658-5300, and they can speak to one of our 2. We have Miss Karen, Miss Rochelle. They're there most days during the week, as early as like 6:30 in the morning. And then Miss Karen doesn't leave until 5. So if you call the office with a request for a cold case, she'll do some research through our spreadsheets, find the case. She'll email me directly. I'll pull the case typically. I'll do a cursory review of the case. And then if it merits a reinvestigation, I'll assign that to a cold case detective. And we also have civilian investigators attached to our unit now who also assist with our investigations. So we have several people on the team that can help with these unsolved cases and us to do an initial review on them.
How does the cold case unit differ from your homicide work then? The
Right.
homicide division?
So the homicide division, we have 4 active squads, and those detectives are tasked with investigating active homicide. So basically what happens is somewhere in the city on a given day, a homicide occurs, someone's shot, stabbed, beaten, whatever, and it's deemed to be a homicide. Command desk through the city will call the homicide unit and request us to the scene. So one of those detectives who are on an up list, they're at the top of the up list to catch the next case. They're called out along with the entire unit who's working at the time, and they go out to active homicide scenes and investigate those cases day to day. They do those, and they have the resources they need. They work the cases. Unfortunately, sometimes those cases don't get solved for whatever reason, maybe lack of evidence, no witnesses found, or just a myriad of reasons why it wasn't solved. That detective will complete a supplemental report documenting their investigation from A to B, put all the materials in the case file, all the things they found, like an incident recall from the 911 call, any crime scene photographs, any video they collected. All this stuff's compiled in a case file. It's shelved. Now, they'll continue to work that case because sometimes leads do come in months later, sometimes years later. And some detectives will continue to work their case for years. Like we have a detective, Rail Johnson, who's been in the unit for over a decade, 12 years. He'll still, like if he gets a phone call, he'll open his case, work. Maggie Darling is in cold case, but she was an active detective at one time. She worked some of her old cases as well. So some detectives will continue to work their cases, but a lot of times they're catching so many active homicides to go back a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years is daunting. So a lot of times they'll come to us and we'll take the case over and look at it with a new perspective. We'll go over it. We'll look at anything that we can do from our angle to try to further that case.
So I'm not going to lie. We hear a lot about the first 48
Mm-hmm.
hours after a murder. And we hear specifically that the first 48 hours are the most important time to be able to get leads to solve
Mm-hmm.
a case. But you only work with cases that were not solved in the first 48 hours. And what I'm hearing, we're talking about not solved within several months after the murder, even several years after the murder.
Right.
So can you be real with our listeners, with the people of New Orleans? Do these cases get solved?
Yes, some do. Now, I'm not going to lie, like, we're not solving 30, 40, 50 cases a year. I mean, these are cases where they were assigned a homicide detective initially. That detective, we have some of the best detectives, I believe, anywhere. Our guys are great. They've worked here for years. They're very experienced. They're very thorough. So you have a case on the front end that was worked thoroughly by a detective. All the leads were explored. And then, like, again, it was not solved for either, no witness, lack of physical evidence, whatever the reason is, it wasn't solved. It's put back in the case file room. Years later, we look into it by whatever method, a phone call or an independent case review. So it's very challenging for us to actually, especially a case with nothing to test, no witnesses. We do have these cases like that, and we've done, not to get into the weeds of it all, but we've gone as far as we can, as far as like trying to identify certain piece of evidence that can be tested. Again, we have some limitations with DNA. DNA testing is a big thing. If you watch a lot of these old, like these cold case shows, that's the number one way that these cold cases get solved. Because back in the 80s, 90s, definitely the 60s, 70s, even into the early 2000s, DNA wasn't really a thing. It was there. It wasn't used like it is now. Now, pretty much every case we're sending up stuff to be tested. The problem is, though, is that right now our NOPD is getting their DNA lab together. It should be coming soon, right? We outsource to the state police, so they're getting our cases, they're getting state police cases, they're getting other small agency cases. So what happens is obviously it gets bottlenecked. You have all these requests coming in, and they get assigned analysts, and then it gets to this level where it just kind of like stops.
Right.
And then we get these things. And sometimes active cases are getting results, a year, 2 years later.
Right.
So for us, we're almost like a step behind active because we're going the older stuff and we're getting, now I have again, I can't talk about it because we're still working, but I have a case right now that we're looking at in my unit from a few years ago where we just got a CODIS hit on a possible suspect. So that's exciting.
Sorry, before you go any further, can you explain to our listeners what is a CODIS hit so that way we can share in that enthusiasm?
Okay. So basically, like CODIS is basically like this combined DNA index that, like I said, to give you an example, like, if someone's arrested for a felony crime, they go to jail. Typically, they'll get swabbed in jail, like a buccal swab sample, and that's put into the CODIS database where multiple offenders, people who get, violent offenses and certain, serious property crime offenses, they get swabbed and their DNA profile gets put into this system. So as a homicide detective, you work in a case and you find some really good physical evidence that you believe could lead to a suspect, that item will get submitted to the state police crime lab and they'll do their DNA magic on it. And then a lot of times we'll get a profile, meaning like a DNA profile, like a single contributor or sometimes a multiple. And then they'll run that in CODIS, and we'll get a CODIS hit, which comes back to a person.
Wow.
So from there, we'll get a reference sample from that person. We'll try to interview him. And a lot of times from there, that along with other parts of investigation can lead to an arrest warrant being obtained and a case being solved. So DNA, I think, is top tier for like these old cold case investigations, us going through these cases, checking so another challenge we have, not to circle back to this, but we were hit by Katrina, right?
Right.
So a lot of our old cases, pre 2005, right? A lot of our evidence got damaged. Like everything else in the city was destroyed by Katrina. So, but crazily enough, a lot of it survived, mostly intact. And that stuff was actually inventoried and put into a repository. So we do have some evidence from those years. Now, again, it's hit or miss. So, and those are the cases I'm really into testing because, again, we didn't really, not embrace, but really have the capability of doing DNA testing. We were almost getting into it steady when I joined Homicide in 2012. Those years right before that was where DNA was really kind of running and everyone's using DNA, and that's kind of like the future now. So that's one exciting thing. It's just right now our only issue is the time frame. It does take a little time to get back, but these are cases that have been unsolved for so long. It might be another year or two, but if we can get, like in this case I'm working right now, I'm very excited about it. We have a few more steps to do, but I think we'll be able to resolve this case based off of this untested DNA that was there that we kind of identified as could be from a suspect, and then we got a profile. So it's pretty exciting. So we're hoping that I have a few more steps to go, and we're hoping that we can get a closure on that case.
That would be amazing for that for the family of that loved
It
one.
will be.
That would
Agreed.
be very meaningful.
Agreed.
And speaking of the individuals in the community that have lost someone and have not gotten that call from their detectives saying, we have a hit, we have an arrest, or we have a suspect, is there anything you can say to them so they can kind of keep up their hope? Like, why shouldn't they lose hope in this process and in the detectives that are working on their cases?
Right. So I have 3 children, as my bio suggested. Again, I've never experienced directly something so tragic as losing a loved one to a violent crime. I couldn't imagine. And I can never say, oh, I know how you feel, because I don't. Right. But I do empathize deeply with these families. And we have great relationships with some of our families. They call regularly. We talk to some family members once a week, once a month, just checking in, checking back. And a lot of times we have nothing. Sometimes they just want to talk to us about the case or just kind of reach out. But if it were one of my kids or my mom, my dad, someone I loved, I would never stop wanting answers. I would constantly contact Cold Case and, hey, what's up with the case? From our perspective, it's such a hard thing to do, to have to tell family members that, hey, we don't have anything right now, because we don't want to lie. I hate to give false hope. Oh, we got some good stuff coming or something like that. That's really disingenuous. If it were me, I'd want to know, tell me the truth and just be transparent. And a lot of times we don't have anything, and and again, that's very hard to accept. And I understand that, to know that some parents lose their only child to violence in the city, and for someone to tell them, hey, we don't have anything new right now, and they're banking on one of us identifying this person who took their child away, that's hard. And again, I can never say I understand how they feel, but I could not imagine how they feel knowing that this hole in their life will be that way forever. Even if we did solve the case, it's never going to stop that ache. But it's at least they'd have. And I hate saying closure, because there's never closure in these cases.
There's never closure.
Never. It's just a fake term. But at least you would know that the person who was responsible was identified and held responsible for that crime. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Or at least has the perception of held accountable for that crime.
Yeah.
Because it's and this is something that we say to families, because so much of the work that you're describing kind of touches on this idea of expectation management.
Yeah.
And defining the relationship. These are all terms because this is a lifelong relationship that these families might end up having with their detectives or with just the NOPD in general. And we're not just talking about losing a loved one. We might also be talking about losing faith in our systems as they operate.
Yes.
Because when you don't feel you're getting justice, when you don't feel you're getting those arrests, it's very difficult to still believe in concepts like our police process
Right.
or
the justice
the
system
justice
in general.
system,
Yeah.
right?
I totally
It's-
understand that.
So there's a lot of things that you're kind of a very heavy tide that you're working against, possibly, or just working in
Yeah.
to be able to do your work, and that's very, very difficult. And that's why also I want to flag. We're not going to ask you that much about it, but I do want to flag that homicide and cold case unit. Y'all have access to social workers
Yes.
to be able to work with these
Yes.
families, right?
And they're great. We have an amazing team, and in every case that's a homicide investigation is assigned to a social worker who reaches out to the families, provide resources. They're all trained professionals, and they have these contacts with the families indefinitely, and they hold these great events. We have like next of kin meetings every
Right.
quarter.
I've
And it's
been to
really,
them.
yeah, you have it, and it's fantastic.
incredible,
They have a
yeah.
whole spread of food. They're able to meet with the detectives and talk about the case, meet with supervisors. A lot of times our command staff's there, like, Chief Gernon, Captain Kevin Burns, Lieutenant
Right.
Andrew Waldron. They're there to support the unit, and also if there's any issues or questions or concerns, they're there for that reason. So they've done fantastic work, and they've made, and we didn't really have that when I got on, and
No.
that's a new addition in the
Right.
past few years, and I feel it's been fantastic for the unit.
Yeah, and they help them. They help those family members tap into state restitution and crime victim funds to assist with things from funeral expenses
Yes.
to potentially rent to potentially other damages or financial needs that those family members may have. And they connect them with things that could just help the family unit, from counseling
Yeah.
to just to even to other types of like spiritual or emotional
Right.
needs. And I just think that stuff is very important because when we're talking about solving the case today, we're going to be talking about it in terms of one perspective, which is the police perspective
Yes.
towards resolving a case. But when we're talking ultimately about resolution, and you brought up the really loaded word of closure, then we have to think about it in a way that's more comprehensive and has more nuance.
Right.
And that's why I can say that I appreciate the work that NOPD is doing to try to build into their agency those other elements,
Yes.
because that speaks to how we're looking at cases a little bit more dimensionally.
I agree.
And I think that's a great thing. But I want to get back to the NOPD, specifically to the police logistical angle, and when we were writing these questions, Chriselle wrote one that I thought was really wonderful. Does cold case unit decide cause of death?
No. That's determined by the coroner. So basically, every homicide investigation, when they occur, there's an autopsy, a post-mortem investigation done by a pathologist from the coroner's office. They'll, note the cause of death would be a gunshot wound or, blunt force trauma, and they determine the manner of death. And if it's determined a homicide, which 9 times out of 10 they are, sometimes they're remain unclassified or under investigation while they're pending toxicology. So sometimes they're like a little longer out. Sometimes if we find, like, not to be morbid, like skeletal remains, those go to the Faces Lab in Baton Rouge, and they communicate back and forth. And a lot of times those do come back as a homicide, and then they're assigned to an investigator. Sometimes they're assigned on the front end, and they're working the case as that process is taking place. But to go back to it, no, we don't determine the manner of death at all. That's already predetermined by the coroner, and that's when we start the investigation from, either an active investigation. If it's a cold case, it's already been determined a homicide, and we're looking into it. Now, sometimes we get, like, inserted into, like, missing person investigations.
Yeah.
With suspicious things. We'll take some of those cases as well. Those are equally challenging because we don't have a body.
Right.
They're still missing. Now, there are some factors in there that suggest there's foul play involved. And we're working 2 of those right now specifically. I don't want to go too much into those because they're so active, but these are 2 cases where persons reported missing through family and friends, and just there's some foul play suggested, but not enough evidence to suggest a murder yet, and we don't have an actual body or a crime scene. So again, that's a whole nother challenge. So a lot of times we'll take those on as well because we have a little more time than the active squads. Now, a lot of them, to be honest, also with cold cases, kind of go back, we also work active scenes as well. So like my units,
Tell us about that.
yeah. So we do, we work so
neat.
a lot. So we have an on-call system with NOPD. So at 4 a.m, Monday through Friday, I'm on call for homicides, suicides, unclassified deaths, suspicious deaths. So at 4 a.m, when I'm out running, because I run like at 4 a.m, and it's kind of strategic because
Like that humble brag. Go
yeah,
on.
no, it's not. I love running is like the release for me. It's like it's my only time where I have like a moment to myself all day because my day like from there. But so a lot of times I'm running and I have to stay somewhat close to my neighborhood because my phone will ring. Command desk, hey, we got a homicide, we got this. So we actually still work active scenes. My detectives and myself, we still work active cases sometimes. Like especially during Mardi Gras, or special events where our unit is assigned to like, parade route coverage, or they're assigned to like, special event coverage somewhere. Cold case detectives will go into the active up list and catch an active homicide. Like we caught some last year, or this year, I'm sorry. This year, every year, because there's some, they stay behind and catch active cases. So, which is good because, in my opinion, we're still, not saying relevant, but we're still investigating active cases, seeing these new technologies. Like there's like just different things that they're using right now that if you're just strictly living back in like 1999, 2005, you're not adapting to all this new stuff these guys are doing. And some of the newer detectives in our unit are super savvy with technology. That's a big factor too now is technology. I don't want to go too much into the weeds on that, but as you can imagine, like with cell phones being like, just so prevalent in our society now and social media and all this stuff. So there's so many things that are now they're better for an investigation, but they make them so much more complex and complicated because you have to look at all these things now. Whereas be like, oh, knock on the door. Hey, did you see anything? Back then, all you had were witness. You found a witness a lot of times that caused problems too.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yes.
I mean, how many people? And again, I'm very a realist.
Yeah.
We know there's been people wrongfully convicted.
Absolutely.
Which is another horrifying thing, right? Like equally as horrifying as an unsolved case is putting the wrong person in jail, right? So these things do help us, like identify and strengthen a case, the probable cause, but it's also so much more that these guys have to do. So it's like a twofold sword. It's like it's great, but it's also like more daunting. But we also have, we have social workers, we have analysts in our office now. Analysts help us with all the data stuff, cell phone tracking. So we have assigned to our unit, which is great.
You have to go through cell phones. You have to go through so much data. Like, there's social media accounts, there's text messages, there's geolocations. There is a wealth of information that you just have to get just from one phone, let alone if the individual has multiple phones or if there's other phones that are found at a scene. And that's just phones.
Yeah.
We're not even getting into all the other.
Yeah, you got to think about surveillance video, RTCC. You got like license plates, all these things that exist now.
Videos,
right. I mean that didn't exist in the 90s, in the 80s, where these they called them like gumshoes back in the day, knocking on door to door, which is great because the community is the biggest way we can solve crimes. Like there's a community and like in the just they're active, calling with tips, calling with information. But now there's so much more. So back to so basically cold case is not just cold case. We do a lot. We do a lot of administrative things as well to help out. Just, we have public record requests that come in, all these things that we're doing day to day along with working these cold cases and sometimes active cases as well. So we kind of have our hand in a lot, which is, I think it makes us better investigators overall.
And while we're being real about when things go wrong, and we're talking about, the fact that, yes, there are people that are arrested wrongfully who might be serving time wrongfully. Can we reflect on when cops don't do a good initial investigation and then you're inheriting their work?
Yeah.
Does cold cases have any role in if that officer is still working? Do you have any role in effectively, I don't know how to put it, like epicing them, saying, and for listeners, by epic, we mean ethical policing is courageous. And that means that every officer within the NOPD has a responsibility whenever they identify anything that could potentially be misconduct to stop it and then to actively report it
Right.
and to call it out. And so when you inherit these cases that are disappointing, where they are not doing the things that we would expect them to do, the things that they've been trained to do, the things that they know they should do, my question is, what do you do?
Right. So, thankfully, I've never experienced any of our guys with any of those like allegations or anything that would even support, them not doing their job, not doing, because there's like levels to it. Like the detective, we put a lot of faith in our detectives because they're great. We also have a sergeant assigned over each detective squad who is an experienced homicide detective at one point and is now a sergeant in the unit, or an experienced investigator and now a sergeant. And they look over those cases with a fine-tooth comb to say, hey, look, you mentioned this. Did you get these records? Did you do this? So there's multiple layers. And a lot of times, Captain Burns was a homicide detective. He'll look at these files. Hey, so there's like multiple tiers to it. I have never personally seen anybody that I've worked with from 2012 till now with any issues. Now, older cases, you can imagine in the 1990s when they're working 450 murders a year, some of these cases, they only had like a few days and they're catching, and they were catching sometimes like days apart over and over and over again. So they're trying to work multiple cases. So a lot of times, maybe they couldn't get to everything back then. Right. And again, is it their fault? That's not up for you to decide. But also, like over the past few years, we have a really good relationship with the DA's office. Jason Williams has a civil rights division. They look at cases. We partner with them, and we've had a great rapport with them over the years, looking at some of these things to ensure that we got things right and there was no errors made. So there's definitely, because if we made a mistake, I don't want some innocent person sitting in jail for something someone did, even if it was unintentional. There's an innocent person in jail, and there's still a killer on the street who has not been held accountable for. So it's those type of things that we strive not to let happen, right? Because I mean, honestly, I'll say this, and I'd rather like have a suspicion about somebody and just wait on it than wrongfully put somebody in jail for something they didn't do. That's a horrible, and I'd have to live with that forever. This person sitting in jail for a crime they didn't commit, that's the worst to me. I couldn't imagine doing that to somebody. So again, like, we're aware of those things. Luckily, I've never seen any like malfeasance type stuff or anything crazy like that. I think the worst I've seen is just like them running out of time because they're so burdened with so many cases. Because if you look at like best practices, like 5 or 6 a year, right? Early on, when I was catching murders, 12, 13 a year, double, which is like really, it's hard, but that's the reality of it, right? Some of the busy years in the 90s, they were catching like 25, 30 cases per detective.
Right.
That makes it really, really hard to do every like nuanced thing in a case. So again, it's just like, that's the reality of working in a city like this with like, the number of people we had at the time. So those cases we definitely look at, and we hope they have evidence and things to help those cases move forward because they exist.
All right, that is good to hear. I think that for a lot of our families who wonder about the quality of their first investigation that they receive, that's something that they're very concerned about. They just want to know, was everything done on the front end to be able to set up a effective investigation and whatever needs to happen next. They want that assurance, and they want to know that you're reading, as you said, with a fine-tooth comb.
Right.
That you're willing to look at every single rock and unturn every single rock, not just what's out there for the investigation, but also to return to work that might have been done internally by your own.
Correct.
To ask, was that the best angle? Was that the best analysis we could have done? Did we do everything we could have done there?
Or did they miss something?
Yeah, and it's a possibility because a lot of times, like, as an investigator, you can get tunnel vision. Like, you can have this idea of what's going on. And that's why when I had an active squad, every time one of my detectives caught a case, like within 2 days, we'd have a squad meeting. And that detective would get up on a whiteboard and present their case to the unit. And you had senior detectives and you had the newest people just spitballing things. And then you can see the light, oh, I didn't think of that. And then we'd assign, hey, look, all right, I need you to go canvas video. I need you to go do this. And then we'd assign tasks so that the detective's not doing it alone. But I think that's a great method, is like having like these case presentations, because if I'm solo looking at a case and I'm the only person, like I'm looking here and I may not be seeing here. Not that it's my fault. I'm just so like I have this. I'm here and there's something over here that I'm just not recognizing. Where you're like, hey, what about this? I'm like, oh, yes. So is that a possibility? Yes. That's why I think it's good. And we have in the unit with cold case, we'll meet and talk about these cases where these leads exist and how we're going to work them, how we're going to further this case if those leads do exist, how we're going to attack those as a unit to make it easier, make it more efficient, and make sure we're not missing anything.
Yeah, that is so, so, so important. And sometimes it's not about proving the positive, like saying this is what happened. Sometimes it's about proving that this is what never could have happened.
Right.
Like proving the negative.
Right. Because we do get like some families will, like, even in the initial investigation, they'll give out what the streets are saying or the suspects, and we'll get these names, right? And then like sometimes we'll get in a case 2, 3, 4 different potential suspects to where we have to run those. That's a lead, right? We're getting this information, so we have to look at this person, either like include them or exclude them from the investigation. That takes time too. So, and then a lot of times with cold cases, and it's years later, families may have different names or may have like, hey, look, a cousin, someone told me this. So that's helpful too, because we can look at a case file. We can look at the initial witnesses, the statements they gave, look at evidence, look at things that were done with evidence. And if there's nothing there, I mean, we'll type a report of what we did, but having a new person of interest or someone new to look at is beneficial. And then we can see if that's a tangible lead. Just like in an active case, like we can either include them or exclude them from the investigation. So, and we get that a lot from families. Like they'll get new information and they'll call in, hey, look, I heard this. Someone mentioned this. My daughter, or whatever, said this. So we'll look at anything they present to us that's a valid, tip, and we'll run with it.
And sometimes as years and time go by, people are more willing to actually come forward than they were initially.
That's true. And in the most extreme example, sometimes we have a suspect or perpetrator get killed themselves, and then sometimes those people come for, hey, look, I have information on this. Look, someone saw this, and we've solved. And those are like not saying that not rewarding, but the families get some answers. But we have solved cases which are called clear by exception, where the offender is deceased now, and we've gone back and found witnesses who were just afraid because this person was like such a threat to the community, or like they had this perceived fear that something happened, and they'll give a statement like, hey, I did see it. And so we do. That's a reality too. So a lot of times if a person like that is locked up on other charges or sadly deceased, that helps further case. Because a lot of times we get calls from, hey, look, we're hearing this guy in jail is involved or did something. So we'll run it. We'll look at that and we'll try to find witnesses. And it's just one angle that we look at. Is like obviously technology, which either we had or didn't, evidence that we can test, DNA, witnesses. Those are the main the trifecta of things we can actually do with a case to open it back up and look at it again.
I mean, we were talking before the show about the idea of what happened in the Shawshank Redemption. This idea of like, individuals talking while incarcerated and admitting to crimes.
That's crazy too.
Yeah.
And I've had some crazy
stuff on jail
Right.
calls or
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah,
jail
yeah.
calls.
I've had some like, we've brought in people like from jail with information, and like this stuff was like never published in a report, and we know it, and like they're saying, hey, this guy said X, Y, and Z. We're like, whoa,
Yeah.
that does happen too. So I mean, there's all kind of ways. Like, so get back to the whole thing of like not losing faith.
Yeah.
I would never. And these are things that do happen, but sadly, sometimes it takes years. It takes,
it's
like it just takes time. Like we're looking at cases from like. We have ones as far back as like the late 80s where we have some good leads. We're still looking at them, but it's just like it's just hard.
That is wild.
It's just it wasn't solved on the front end, usually for a reason. Like the detective did everything they could, and then we're tasked with like trying to find that rock that wasn't overturned or whatever, and bringing it to closure.
When we're asking you about the work that might be done, one of the questions that we've heard from families is about exhuming bodies. You know, working with the coroner's office to actually revisit a possible autopsy.
Right.
Have you ever heard of that happening in the cold case unit?
It's been done. It's not a common practice at all. I
Okay.
mean, it's not common. I mean, unless there was some kind of question of maybe a dispute of the manner of death or a dispute of the cause of death, or, but I've not experienced a lot of that. Can it happen? Yes. Has it ever happened before? Yes, but it's not common at all.
Okay. And what about 911 calls? What role would a 911 call play in a cold case unit?
Yeah. So, from an active perspective, that's one of the first things when obviously when you go to a crime scene as a detective, you're getting the scene process. You're collecting evidence. You're talking to patrolmen on the scene, have information. You're learning about your victim, all these things. But also, obviously, most of these incidents start from the 911 call. So, like, it's behoove you as a detective to go back and listen to the 911 call, get the incident recall, which is like a transcript of the call, because a lot of times there's some pivotal information in those calls that are going to help you with your investigation. They might get a partial plate. They might get a suspect description. Sometimes they name a suspect. So it's like you never know what that 911 call is going to yield. So, again, that's one thing that we do. It's like we actually have we have case files. A whole case file folder is for the incident recall 911 audio. Because it's super important. And if a case goes to trial, they're going to talk about that. They're going to play that 911 call because it's almost like the genesis of investigation is to start. That's the starting point for us is the 911 call most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's going to be a 911 call that brought the police somewhere where the body is found.
So I do want to ask again about television. Chriselle opened this show up talking
Loves
about
cold
her
case.
Did you want to ask your cold case question?
So, I mean, we see a lot of crime shows. People always envision of what happens in investigations, be them active or old cases, about what they see on television. Things supposed to happen in 30 minutes, an hour. So, in your opinion, we already know that, things do not happen that easily.
Right.
But in your opinion, which one gets the closest to the reality of long-term unsolved investigation?
What TV show?
What TV show?
Yeah. If people were like, oh my God, I love this because let's be real, people, for some reason, relax watching murder shows.
Right.
I do.
And then they use that information to shape their expectations on what a case should look like in the NOPD. So is there one you would say actually hits close to the mark?
Well, obviously for active things, the first 48 is almost a benchmark for these types of shows, right? But and there are some cold case shows, but I'll say this, and I'm not a big crime show watcher.
Really?
My wife is. Like she loves it, and like I'll come in, I'm like, I'm like, no, I don't want to watch this. Like I don't know, I deal with this all day. I'd rather watch like like a foreign film or like a comedy or something like different. But anyway, like
Get your mind off it.
I think if you even look at some of the cold case shows, a lot of that show like goes back to the active case, and
Absolutely.
it kind of like they have actors playing the roles, and they're gonna because that's the kind of the most I hate to say exciting. That's the thing people want to see is the actual investigation. In my experience, cold case. If you did a cold case documentary, it's people in an office combing through a case file,
Right.
and then there's some DNA. Hey, Brandon, I'm gonna send this up. Here's this form. We want to look at this. This could be important. 2 years later, we got the results. So it would be so like boring. And they'd be like, God, this is the most boring show ever. Like even you had like super charismatic detectives, it'd be like a bunch of people in an office just like talking about a case and like just looking through things. And I mean, obviously in these active crime shows, I mean, they're out there on a scene. They got this. They're chasing down suspects. They got the SWAT team getting them out. It's like made for TV. It's like the drama and all this stuff and the suspense. Cold case is more just methodical, just combing through records, looking at things, communicating, identifying new leads, identifying possible witnesses, identifying, things to further a case, and it's not very exciting.
Right. I used to work at Innocence Project New Orleans for like 10 and a half years, and you're absolutely right. If my friends always thought, what you do is so interesting. And I was like, if y'all see what I really do, day to day, literally sitting in boxes of files and
Right.
just reading cases, reading detective reports, reading DA's reports. It's not the funnest thing in the world.
Equally important,
Yes,
but not
but it's
not
not
fun.
the
It's very to
best
watch it
part.
from like a bird's eye view or like
Right.
from a camera. Like, man, I'm gonna turn something else on. I'm
The
gonna watch
best part
Seinfeld
was
or
probably
something.
when
like-
you did get new witnesses and you got to talk to them, but
Right.
it wasn't a fun thing to watch at all.
No.
I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So again, the work, in my opinion, is equally as important as these shows. Like these active cases, it's just a different method. It's more of a like studying case files and like going through records and all these things. And we have. And I want to just kind of give a shout out to like we have this like she's a volunteer and she's I call her a civilian researcher investigator. I don't know if you ever met Dr. Dana Garvey. She works in our unit, and she is like, as far as research skills go, she is like impeccable. She's like helping us with some of these older things that with connectivity stuff, and like, again, like just brilliant. Like, and again, that's the kind of person you want in a unit who's like super analytical, spreadsheets, making like this, showing the similarities, like really diving deep into like a file and picking it apart. That's the kind of mind you want doing this. Like it's not, Crockett and Tubbs or running after criminals, and it's just like this methodical going through a case, finding that one thing that you can use to further a case. And a lot of times you find that, and that leads to another dead end. And that's the reality of cold case. It's like it's rewarding when you get things, but a lot of times it's like, man, it's a letdown because you get this hope, and then all of a sudden it's like you hit this other wall, and you have to call the family. Hey, look, here's because we explain, we're very transparent. Hey, I can't go all the detail. We do have a new lead. We're running it down, and then I'm sorry, didn't have the results we were thinking, so we're kind of back at square one. So it's like it's a lot of that, It's day in and day out of that.
And I just want to highlight for people that might be having a hard time conceptualizing like what type of information we might be talking about or why researchers might be important. We might be talking about potential suspects in murders who ran in the same crew and were able to show that type of social connectivity through the fact that they all went to the same school. That school might not exist in New Orleans anymore. Those
Right.
records might have been destroyed in the storm.
Right.
That building might have been deconstructed and something now exists on that block.
Right.
The whole murder scene literally might have been paved over and might not exist anymore. That whole block might not exist
Yes.
anymore.
And that's a reality.
And so when we say we're tracing stuff down and we're trying to understand, and by we I mean NOPD, and they're trying to understand, how this all might have fit into a bigger picture. We're talking about trying to also reconstruct the city as it was known to be socially, geographically,
Right.
And also
physically.
witnesses
And
might have
witnesses.
moved.
Witnesses
Right.
might have moved,
Katrina.
died,
Yeah.
changed, and
Especially pre-Katrina, because I mean,
Yeah.
that was a major turning. I hate going back to that. It's like the thing. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, pre-Katrina this," but it's like it's
it
true.
is.
There's a major like
it's a riff.
mark in the city. Like just like it was one way, then it was another way, and that happened, and like the whole city changed. Right?
Yeah.
Like, neighborhoods changed. People moved out, moved in. Like it's population shrunk. People are scattered. So
People
that
just
it's a
disappeared.
whole
Yeah.
another issue that we've definitely noticed
Yeah.
in some of these files for sure.
Medical records gone.
Yeah,
arrest
records in general. Like
records,
you're talking about,
gone.
we have issues with, these old. Sometimes we can't find documents. Like they're just
Yeah.
they're, and like back to Dr. Garvey, she's really good at like going to the library, looking at old microfilm, microfiche, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
really,
Microfilm,
really doing this
pull
amazing
things
stuff. Like she
all
impressed.
those
I'm like,
things.
that's
Yeah.
impressive. Like she's great to have as a resource, and that's the
Pulling
kind
old
of thing.
maps. all
Right.
Yeah. all
That's
that
the thing
stuff.
going back to like I guess a multidisciplinary approach, like having like social workers, detectives.
Yeah.
The more people you have, really like embedded in a unit and like dedicated to the unit and like really believe in the cause, like they think different, right? Because like a detective is not going to think the same as a social worker, who's not going to think the same as like a scientist, and having all these people working together for like the benefit of a case, that's how you win some of these cases or solve these cases. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like you can't do it by yourself. There's no way.
So let's talk about the beautiful moment where a beautiful moment for you, I'm sure, where you get a suspect, you get a hit, you believe that you can bring this case in. Do you get to decide whether or not that results in any actual prosecution?
No. So anytime we make an arrest, right, that person's, you know, an arrest warrant, I'm just being theoretical, an arrest warrant's cut on somebody, it goes into the system, and NCIC is put in the system, that person's found, that person gets booked into Orleans Parish, you know, jail, then, the official time clock starts, the DA's office will review the case, we'll go meet with the DA's office, we'll have charge conference. If the case is really strong, it's put in front of a grand jury. The grand jury will then determine if yes or no for true bill, meaning like yes, true bill, murder or whatever crime. And then from there, it's got to go to trial. So we have to build strong enough cases that can be prosecution ready, because there's no purpose of us just clearing a case to make an arrest and it gets thrown out, because all we have is like one of the little small piece that on its own is not enough. I mean, you may just meet probable cause to get an arrest, but beyond that, there's nothing else you can do. It's like, what's the point? Like if for a guy to get out of jail in 120 days, he's back out and that's it. And you kind of like, so but no, we don't. Like, so basically we partner. We have a great relationship with Jason Williams' office. They're great. We communicate. They have a great unit over there. Abigail McDonald, all these people over there have really been doing this for a long time. So, we'll solve a case. We'll partner with them. We'll communicate with them. And then again, we're going to try to build a strong enough case that will be accepted by the DA's office and then sent into a section for trial.
And you brought up the clock. Can you let our listeners know, is there a statute of limitations? What I mean is there ever a time that if, say, you convicted you committed a murder, that basically the ability for you to be held accountable has expired?
Never. So murder, it never expires. So if you kill somebody in 1972 and I identify you today, you're going to jail. You're going to jail. I'm building a case. So that it never, some crimes like, burglary, shot, whatever, you have in 4 years, sorry, you had your chance, you didn't solve it, too bad. Murder, no, it's going to follow you forever. So you're not going to it's not going to expire. There's oh, you didn't get me here. Like, we're going to hopefully identify you. It may take 20 years, 30 years, but it's happened. We've caught, older cases. And so no, you can't just time your way out of a murder.
So in that spirit, again, can you tell us the phone number for the homicide division? So that way, if there is anyone listening who thought, no one would care that I saw this
Right.
or I knew this back then, because I'm sure this is all done. And they probably won't even, nothing could come of it now anyway.
Right.
Who should they call?
504-658-5300. Call. There's if no one's there, if it's after hours, they check their answering machine, leave a message. If you have any information, even if you want to be anonymous, call in. We'll look at that information. It's the same as calling Crime Stoppers. Any tips you have that could lead to an identification, we'll love to know, because this is one less violent person on the streets of New Orleans that is out there possibly reoffending. It only makes the community safer when people who are involved in incidents like this are held accountable and brought to justice.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and we want to hear that. So, and I think what you said earlier about the public being an important part of this process, I just want to remind anybody that's listening that our perspective has always been that the community is the greatest asset in solving and preventing crime for the NOPD.
100%. And we cannot do this without them. And factual. We can do all the technology you want, but the human element has to be there. And these relationships are super important, and the trust has to be there. So I implore anybody with information to call our office, because I mean, a lot of times in some of these cases, the streets know did this immediately, and we get rumblings of it, but without real legitimate information, it's hard to go on sometimes. So anything helps. Any information we can get helps. You never know what you could provide to us could tip the scale for us to get an arrest warrant in a case, active or cold. So again, please call us.
And I want to just quickly go to that point that the streets may know, and there might be names getting tossed out there. Just because there's confusion around this. If my name was tossed out for the murder of Chriselle, and I'm sorry, Chriselle,
I get killed every time.
every time we do a show, I'm always
Right.
like, for Chriselle, I'm killing her. So my name gets tossed on Instagram and TikTok as the killer. Do I have to talk to you?
Nope.
Why not? I might have killed her.
Yeah, you have a constitutional right against self-incrimination. You don't have to speak to the police. If you're the perpetrator, there's nothing forcing you to come in and speak to the police.
Say you find a gun with an obliterated serial number, and it is attached to the murder of Chriselle. I killed her by gun, and I get arrested on a totally separate crime, with holding that gun. Now, do I have to talk to you?
No.
I still don't have to talk
No,
to you?
you never. There's nothing forcing you to speak to the police. That's your right. As a U.S. citizen, you don't have to speak to the police.
That is your right.
I would love for you to, if you were the person who killed
Again,
Chriselle. Like,
anyone in the
hey, did you
public
do it?
or
Yes, I
not?
did. It'd make my job so much easier if you just came in and told us that you did it. But it doesn't really happen that often. I mean, we do get that. Sometimes it happens, but it's seldom. I wish it would be my job would be super easy. I might even have a job if it was that easy. So, again, like, you don't have to though.
I don't have to.
You don't have to.
I don't have to.
You don't.
Well, that is the Constitution, and as former criminal defense attorneys, I'm not going to lie, we may have known the answer to that question.
And we're all like, no.
I thought that was a quiz. I'm like, okay, yeah.
I know, is
pass.
that a trick?
Pass
No,
the quiz.
but we do think it's important. Again, it's another layer to what makes your side of the investigation something that has a lot of legal, constitutional realities that have to get navigated.
Correct.
And just because there is that information, and we hear this a lot from families. We all know if you were anywhere on social media, you would know who killed my child. And the answer might be, we might have an idea or a suspicion
Right.
of who's responsible for something. But the huge but comes
Yeah.
after that.
It happens a lot. Like that scenario happens more than you think, where we're getting information from multiple sources, and again, like as you demonstrated, like some people think that make them come in, go grab them, make them go grab them. Like we can't. It doesn't work. And again, it doesn't work that way. I wish it'd be great if like the person who did it was like you know what, I did it, but I mean it's tough. So we have to like, again, that information is crucial about you hearing these things, but that alone, we can't get an arrest warrant off of like hearsay and just like people are saying this guy did it. I mean, that would be just as bad as like an erroneous witness 40 years
Right.
ago putting some guy in jail for something he didn't do. So we don't do that, right? I mean, information, we take it and then we investigate it, and it may lead somewhere and it may not.
In our final moments, will you tell us, what do you wish you could correct the record on? What is the most important thing in your mind that you want the public to know about this work?
Again, this work, it's complex. And then I want the public to know that the detectives that do this work are dedicated to this work, and they bring this home with them. Not just like in a briefcase, but emotionally and psychologically. Like, obviously these aren't our family members, but we've developed, relationships with the family, and you see this day in and day out, and like I'm never not going to answer my phone at 9 o'clock at night. I've had phone calls at 2 a.m, like on case. So it's like we truly bring this work home with us, and it like we have to kind of compartmentalize that in our brain somewhere, because this work it's not a 9 to 5 job. Like I don't just clock out and this goes away. And again, like we live with this. Like when you come to homicide, we tell the detectives like, do you understand this is going to change your life? Like this is not like a shoplifting case where someone steals like a 6-pack of Coke. No one really cares about that. Like people care about this, and you should too. You should answer your phone. You should do all these things. If they call, go meet at a coffee. It's like you're kind of on call indefinitely, and it's a tough thing. It's impossible to turn it off, and it does weigh on you. And I'm running back to running. I'm thinking about this stuff all the time. Like, okay, like you stay with it, and sometimes, crazy enough, you're riding in the city, and like and I've said this before, and it sounds kind of morbid, but like you see landmarks in this city where you worked a murder case.
Yeah.
So like you, instead of seeing like, whatever, a restaurant or a corner store or this, like you're seeing like, oh, that's where so-and-so was killed. And it's like, it becomes like this, like almost like living graveyard. It's really weird. It's hard to explain. So like all these things, like we take home with us, and like, it's, yeah, I mean, we definitely take our job seriously. The work's important to us. But the reality of this work is too, that it's just like, we're not going to solve every case for whatever reason. And 9 times out of 10, at no fault of our own, it's just that the factors weren't there, and that's the hardest. And that's when it becomes the cold case unit's burden to like work these cases and indefinitely. Like we're never going to be like, you know what, we're never looking at this case again. That would never happen, because it's always going to be somebody calling about it with interest, with new information. So like these things like just last forever. Like even when I leave this position, there'll be somebody else in the position doing the same thing I'm doing forever. In perpetuity, just doing it. So, yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much, Detective Barry, for coming on today and explaining to us, the ins and outs of the cold case unit and what you all go through and do to try to solve these cases that are still unsolved. Well, that wraps up today's episode of The Monitor's Mic. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and staying engaged with the crucial conversations we're having about police, oversight, and community safety. Before we close, I want to remind everyone about OIPM's 24/7 hotline. It's operational every day of the year, and you can call or text 1-877-225-OIPM, which is 6476. The hotline is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and you can also file through our website at www.nolaipm.gov in those same languages. No matter how you reach the hotline, you always have the option to file anonymously through the platform. As always, if you missed any part of today's show or want to catch up on past episodes, visit our website at www.nolaipm.gov. You can also find and follow us on YouTube at NOLA IPM, on Instagram at NOLA OIPM, and Facebook at New Orleans Independent Police Monitor. Until next time, stay informed, stay involved, and stay committed to building a safer community. This has been The Monitor's Mic.